Actors Johnny Depp and Amber Heard were very busy making movies during their relationship. Oftentimes, they would be in different cities for weeks at a time. In 2014, Johnny was in Boston and Amber was in New York, and they decided to take a flight together back to L.A. But that flight was not a happy reunion.
You would agree that you were very drunk on that flight, correct?
I do not agree that I was very drunk on that flight.
I fell to the floor, I caught myself on the floor, and I just felt like I was looking at the floor of the plane for felt like a long time.
This hour, we take you inside the plane ride to try to figure out what really happened. Was Amber beaten in front of everyone on the plane? Did Johnny avoid Amber and just pass out in the bathroom? What are the witnesses saying, and what does the evidence reveal?
I know that I knew that I was going to have a very ugly, I was going to end up with a very ugly situation with Amber.
He sits down in front of me at one point, and because I'm not answering him, I was looking out of the window, and he slaps my face.
An in-depth look at Johnny Depp versus Amber Heard with our panel of experts starts right now. I'm Vinny Politan. Thanks so much for joining us tonight here on Closing Arguments. If we're learning anything from Johnny Depp versus Amber Heard, it's that fame and money are not an automatic recipe for happiness. We've seen a lot of ugliness. And you talk about Johnny Depp and Amber Heard, both of them anything but ugly, right? These are movie stars. This is a movie star couple that are in the midst of great careers. Johnny Depp, a legendary career, and Amber Heard on the way up. I mean, everything should be great. But there's a part of being a movie star and married to a movie star that creates some challenges in a relationship, right? Many people travel for work, but in their business, they both have to travel. But it's not traveling for a couple days. It's not going to do a presentation. Like, they're going away for weeks, months at a time, where they could potentially be separated in different cities on different projects. You know, we go back to 2014, Johnny Depp at that point was shooting a movie in Boston. So he's in Boston working on his project, an important project, like every movie is. You're getting paid millions of dollars to do it. You're very focused on the work. You want to get it done. You look for those days off. And at the time that he's in Boston, Amber Heard is working down in New York, which is relatively close, but when you're working 14-hour days shooting a movie, it's not like you have time to see one another. So they both ended up getting a little bit of time and were able to get reunited. And you wonder, this being separated, did it make their hearts grow fonder, right? A lot of times, absence will do that, right? You don't see your boyfriend, your girlfriend, your husband, your wife, your friend. You're like, wow. You know, when you get together, it's like a time to celebrate. It's like, wow, this is great. I missed you so much. I can't wait to see you. I can't wait till we're finally back together. I know we have to work, but when we get together, it's going to be great. So Johnny and Amber got together, they had some time, and there was a flight. They were going to fly from the East Coast to the West Coast, Johnny Depp's daughter's birthday. Amber was picked up in New York by the private plane, which then went to Boston and picked up Johnny. So they're on this airplane, and let me tell you, on this plane, extreme turbulence. And it had nothing to do with flying conditions and had everything to do with what was happening inside. This was not a pretty scene. There are different versions, like everything else in this trial, different versions. But let me give you a little idea of what Amber Heard's side is alleging is taking place on this flight when they are finally back together, flying from Boston to L.A.
You'll hear evidence that before one of the instances of abuse, a cross-country plane flight in May 2014 from Boston to Los Angeles, when he kicked Amber in the back on a private jet. You'll hear evidence that he had had no food for days, that he had used cocaine, that he had had half a bottle of whiskey, that he had had countless Red Bulls and vodkas, that he had taken pills, and on the plane decided to top all that off with 2 bottles of champagne. You'll hear evidence of that. And he blacked out on the plane, and he abused Amber and didn't remember anything about it when he woke up.
Now, Johnny Depp has a different version of all that, but let's go back to why they are separated and where they are. Johnny Depp is filming a movie. It's called Black Mass. Involves Whitey Bulger, the legendary mobster from Massachusetts. Let's take a look at a clip from that movie.
It's not what you do, it's when and where you do it. And who you do it to or with. If nobody sees it, didn't happen.
Jimmy, he's 6. You really think that's the best thing to be telling your kid?
Yeah.
Great actor, right? But that's what he was filming. Meanwhile, Amber Heard was in New York filming the Adderall Diaries. And what's really crucial to this project was who she was co-starring with. Take a look.
There's no way he buried the body that close.
Oh yeah, where would you dump a body?
Hudson Canyon.
Tim, it's weird you didn't answer for that, but
It's in New Jersey off the coast. It's this underwater canyon. It starts in the basin and goes out in the ocean like 400 miles. It's as big as the Grand Canyon, but nobody knows about it. So people just abandon things like all the time. I once dropped an engagement ring in there.
sorry.
I don't know why I just said that.
Looks like they have pretty good chemistry on camera there, right? All right, so James Franco's been in the middle of this whole thing the whole time. We know he's on a witness list, but there's a history. It's a big part of this case. So I want you to take a listen to Amber Heard and Johnny Depp from their testimony talking about James Franco and how that all relates to this plane ride.
He was mad at me for taking the job with James Franco. He hated James Franco and was already accusing me of kind of secretly having a thing with him in my past since we had done Pineapple Express together. Eventually it went from, do you have something to tell me, to, you want to tell me how much you liked it. Tell me, did he slip a tongue? It got worse and worse, just more. It went from asking me about how my kissing scene went or how the sex scene went to asking me what James Franco had done in the scene to being really explicit about my body.
You suspected that Amber was having an affair with James Franco, correct? That was the reason for your argument.
Yeah, yes.
And when you got on the plane, you considered that she was also being judgmental toward you because she believed that you were inebriated and under the influence of drugs, correct?
That was a constant.
Okay, so as this flight begins, there is tension. There is absolute tension. On the one hand, because of the James Franco issue. On the other hand, Amber Heard, Johnny Depp, is he under the influence? Is she suspicious of being under the influence? But that always causes problems between the two. Let's bring in our guests. Joining me tonight in Los Angeles, California, family law litigator, TikTok lawyer, Limor Mojdahiyazad. You can check her out on TikTok at Lawyer Limor. Remember, it's L-I-M-O-R. Also in Los Angeles, California, forensic psychiatrist, trial expert witness, and columnist, Dr. Carol Lieberman. Great to see you both. Limor, let's talk about that tension. You're out in Hollywood, you're actually both out in Hollywood, out in LA. The thing that I'm learning about all this is I'm really surprised, or maybe I shouldn't be surprised, that there's seems to be jealousy. Like everyone's an actor, you know you're performing, yet There's allegations that Johnny is very jealous of James Franco or suspicious of Amber Heard and James Franco. I'm a little surprised by that, Lamore, but should I be?
No, you absolutely shouldn't be, because it's all about the new hot thing, right? In our regular lives, sometimes it's that way, and in Hollywood, it is absolutely that way. Whether it's for work or a relationship, it's always like that. If you remember Brangelina, right? When they did Mr. and Mr. Smith, rumors started the second we knew they were cast together, right? So it's a thing in Hollywood and in regular life.
Dr. Carol Lieberman, talk to me about that. You know, they've got to do love scenes, sex scenes, but they're married. We've seen some relationships last through the years, but others not so much. What are your thoughts about the tension on this flight focused around Franco?
Well, you know, I think it's more about him suspecting Amber, not trusting Amber, whether it's James Franco or Elon Musk. You know, he knew that that she was looking for the next best thing, that she was looking for the next best thing. But, you know, in Hollywood, it really is, actors really, you know, get into these relationships when they're cast together. And then when they leave the set, you know, and they don't have lines or they don't have a script to follow, the relationships often fall apart. And but again, it was Johnny met her on the set of The Rum Diary, and that was how he fell under her spell, because it was really about the character that she played, Chenault, and the fact that he was really, you know, connected to this film, and I think he fell in love with the character, and then later he found out what Amber Heard was all about.
That's interesting. Lamore, how do you see this relationship? Do you see Johnny falling under her spell, she falling under Johnny's spell? How is it that they could be so hot and heavy, right, and then be where we are today inside this courtroom?
I think it's because, you know, Hollywood is just a different world, right? They were both under each other's spells, right? We have Johnny Depp, who's a legend, no matter what he looks like or how much money he has, he's just a Hollywood legend, right? And then we have Amber Heard, who was auditioning for a role that Johnny Depp could give her, right? And she's hot and young, and we've seen text messages between him and other witnesses that are all about how pretty he thinks she is, right? It's not about their bond or anything like that. It's about her looks. So, you know, they were both under a spell coming from different angles, right?
Dr. Carol Lieberman, your thoughts about Johnny Depp and his state of mind on that plane, that he's under the influence of something, right? We know that he's admitted so much. There's a discrepancy about whether he was drinking or not. He's saying he's taking pills. Right. Your thoughts about that and how that adds to the tension between these two?
Well, you know, yes, he said he was taking OxyContin, and he admits to that. He says he doesn't recall taking alcohol, but it seemed like, you know, he was sort of denying that he did. He didn't think he did. But, you know, this is really their trick that they let on from the beginning, Amber Heard's team, legal team, because their whole thing is to say that he was blacked out and he didn't know all these horrible things that he did to Amber on the plane and at other times during their relationship. Now, you know, how do you refute someone saying, well, you were blacked out and you did this, this, and this, and you just don't remember? I mean, one way to refute it is on the plane, in any case, there were witnesses. So if they saw him do these things or they didn't see him do these things, you know, that is one way to tell. And I don't think that that testimony has come out yet saying that that they did witness him doing these things.
Lamore, let me ask you about one other aspect of this. Again, you're a family law expert. From your experience, what happens to, is it common that you see couples who have one or both that have to travel a lot for work and they're separated during the marriage for weeks, perhaps months at a time? Is that a common cause of potentially splitting apart rather than having absence make the heart grow fonder and make the times together more intense and better, that it can draw people apart as well?
You know what typically happens in situations like that when there's a dynamic that, it's just a regular thing that we're always apart for work. Oftentimes you see that there is infidelity, but the couple does not break up because of it. It just becomes part of the dynamic. So in those situations, something bigger than just an affair with someone the other partner will never see again is what will break up that relationship.
But if it's someone that you may be in another movie with, it could be another story. This is fascinating. All right, Limor Moshe, Dr. Carol Lieberman staying with us the whole hour. When we come back, we'll take a look at Johnny Depp's state of mind on that plane. Was he drunk? Was he just taking the Roxys? What does the evidence tell us? We'll take a look.
I can guess by how he's moving, how he's walking. I didn't realize at the time I had already become really sensitive to these little changes because my life changed depending on what he was on. We take off, and at some point he's asking me what's wrong with me, what do I have? Do I have something to tell him? Do I have something to tell him? You want to talk to me about your day yesterday? And then it gets, I already know that he's drunk. I already know he's using, he reeks of weed and alcohol. I mean, his breath smelled so bad, and I could, I could anticipate that there was a no-win situation here. There was no me talking myself out of this or talking him down or any.
We are taking a close, in-depth look at that plane ride from Boston to LA, and there's Amber Heard describing Johnny Depp, saying that he's drunk. And Johnny Depp is denying this. He's saying he wasn't drunk. He's saying he was taking Roxys. Let's bring back in our guest, still with us, family law litigator, TikTok lawyer, Limor Moshe, forensic psychiatrist, trial expert witness, columnist, Dr. Carol Lieberman. And joining us now, special guest in Orlando, Florida, human behavior expert, Susan Constantine, back with us. Great to have everyone here. Susan, I want you to take a listen to Johnny Depp here, describing his state of mind on that plane, on the issue of whether or not he was drunk. Take a look at it and tell me what you see. Let's watch.
You would agree that you were very drunk on that flight, correct?
I do not agree that I was very drunk on that flight.
And you would agree that you had taken drugs either before or during that flight, correct?
I had taken a double dose of the roxicodone, which is different than a blackout.
But you don't agree that you were very drunk?
I don't recall drinking a whole. You don't need to drink a whole lot when you're on those things. You don't have time.
You just testified you weren't drunk on the flight, okay?
I don't recall being drunk, no.
All right, Susan Constantine, what did you see there in his answer on cross-examination on an important issue for Amber Heard, which is whether or not he was drinking?
Well, we're talking about his perception about what is considered drinking, right? Was he drunk in his mind? No, he wasn't drunk compared to everything else he's done in his past. So when you look at his facial expressions, he kind of purses his lips and he shrugs his shoulders. He looks down, his mouth turns down slightly. And it's because what he's doing, he's thinking, he's contemplating his mind, well, that's not how it works. That's not what being drunk is. That is what being on drugs does, and they're two different things. See, he's been living this life for so long, he knows what each type of substance does to his body, and somehow over time, he has learned to minimize that.
Limor, what are your thoughts about distinguishing between being under the influence of drugs versus alcohol versus whether it's cocaine, Quaaludes, Roxy, and how that impacts what may or may not have happened on this plane?
Well, it all depends on, do you remember what occurs when you're on X substance, right? So the difference between that is going to make or break the argument for the defense or make and break the argument for the plaintiff's side.
And Dr. Carol Lieberman, your thoughts about the difference in someone's mind when they are drunk versus when they're on drug X or drug Y? Is there a big difference? And would someone who uses them all the time understand those differences?
I think that he has, he's had a lot of experience with these different kinds of drugs and alcohol and so on. And I think he has somewhat of a sense of each of them. But, you can get to a point where whether you've combined things or, taken more than something than usual, you could theoretically not remember or not perceive it correctly. That's why it comes back to witnesses or it comes back to her recording. She supposedly recorded him during this flight, as she has basically throughout their life.
Let's take a listen to that recording. All right, Dr. Carroll, I'll give you the first crack at the howling. What's your take on it? And then we'll just go around the horn on that, because it was a big part of their case.
Yes, he was supposed to be howling. I mean, he sounds very unhappy. He sounds like an animal, but he sounds like a wounded animal, as I think he was from all of the abuse that she has been giving him, verbal abuse as well as, of course, physical abuse.
Susan Constantine, your thoughts on the
Well, he's mentioned more than once that he does drugs to numb his pain from his childhood wounds and the abuse that he went through. And when he's in that altered state of mind, think about that he is responding to the stimulus of that drug. So who knows if it was a psychotropic drug, what sort of mind, where he was going in it, and what was the reaction? What was he really thinking? Was it a psychotropic drug? Was he seeing things? God knows. I've never been on drugs, don't know anyone on drugs, so I can't speak to the fact of what that howling was. It did sound bizarre, and it sounded like something that was out in the woods that I'd want to stay away from.
Lamar, do you think this damages his credibility, the howling? What does it tell the jury?
Listen, to me, that howling sounds like you're either howling in your sleep or you're on something. I don't think that it's evidence that someone was abused or perpetrated abuse. So I think it's just, he says, I wasn't drunk, but he does admit he was on something. Is that the typical reaction of someone on that substance? I don't know, but that sounds like a howl.
Again, I mean, this is a case unlike any other case we've ever seen. We're seeing and hearing everything that regular people and movie stars try to hide from the public all the time. Johnny Depp brought the lawsuit. He knows all this is coming out. He wants the world to see and hear it. When we come back, we're going to get to the crucial moment on the plane, because Amber Heard says this is the first time she was ever physically abused in front of other people. Her description and our analysis of that description when we come back.
When I arrived on the plane, I was not feeling any pain, and I knew that she was ready for some kind of brawl, and I sat on the plane drawing. I was drawing in my notebook. She would verbally heckle, hassle, accuse, poke, prod, physically, poke poke and prod psychologically, emotionally.
Who's the instigator on this plane ride? You know, is it, on the one hand, is it Amber Heard who's poking and going after him because he's on the Roxy's, or is it Johnny Depp because he's under the influence and he's jealous and he's lashing out against Amber Heard? I mean, those are the two versions that we're seeing here. But nonetheless, Amber Heard testified that this was the first time she was physically abused in front of other people. Still with us, Lamar Mojdahizad, Dr. Carol Lieberman, and Susan Constantine. Let's take a look now. Here she is, Amber Heard, part of her description of that attack on the plane ride.
I remember moving more than once, and Johnny came to me each time, not the other way around. He sits down in front of me at one point, and because I'm not answering him, I was looking out of the window, and he slaps my face. And his friend is in our proximity. And it didn't hurt my face. It just felt embarrassed that he would do that to me in front of people. It was the first time that anything like that had happened in front of somebody. I walk away from him. My back is turned to him, and I feel this boot in my back. He just kicked me in the back. I fell to the floor. I caught myself on the floor, and I just felt like I was looking at the floor of the plane felt like a long time. And I thought to myself, I don't know what to do. I can't believe did he just kick me? No one said anything. No one did anything. It was like you could hear a pin drop on that plane.
Susan Constantine, what did you notice there? Human behavior expert.
A lot of things are going on there. First of all, we're seeing Johnny Depp, and he's talking about these slicing gestures that she's coming at him. So, and that is consistent with his words. So I think that this conversation is going back and forth. I don't think it's one more than the other. I think that both of them are not telling you the full story because they use terms like at some point. So when you say at some point, what was preceding that point is why they omit, they leave out, and that's really crucial information, and they're doing that for a purpose. The other thing is, what I'm watching her is that she doesn't say he kicked her at first. She said she felt a boot on her back. But then she doesn't really show any motion in her gestures, like he forced me or there was movement. I don't see any illustrative gestures in her body language to say that she was being forced or pushed down. The other thing is that I noticed consistently throughout her testimony, she always shows anger and contempt in her facial expressions and disgust. You see her crinkling up her nose a lot. This is how she feels about him as a person, but I don't see the tears. The gestures and the expressions oftentimes in Amber don't match up. So I think that this is one of those examples where she starts to add additional dialogue that may not be true. So I don't find that to be totally credible.
Dr. Carol Lieberman, your thoughts. This is an important moment because she's saying this is the first time he's being physical, so brazen that he's just doing it in front of everyone.
Well, you know, I think that's one of the most interesting parts of this, because it's not so much about, you know, oh, so is he going to break up with me because he thinks I'm having sex with my co-stars? It's not about that. Or did he hurt me? You know, it's about that he did this in front of people. So why that's so upsetting to her is because I think that the main reason she got into this relationship with him, not that he isn't attractive and sexy and intelligent and charming and all of these other things, but I think her primary thing was she was looking for him. She wanted to be on his arm. She wanted to be get better roles. She wanted to, you know, be lifted up in Hollywood by being his partner. And so that's why she is so upset about him doing this in front of other people. It's ruining the image. How could he do this? If he did this, which I'm not buying 100%, but if he did this, why that shouldn't be the main thing that you're worried about, that he did it in front of other people.
Lamore, I want you to take a listen to Johnny Depp here being cross-examined, and this is about the day after this flight. And take a listen and let me know what you think and what impact this testimony will have on the jury understanding what happened on the plane.
And in this email to Amber, the day after this plane flight, you write her and you say, once again, I find my place, Once again, I find myself in a place of shame and regret. Of course, I am sorry. I really don't know why or what happened, but I will never do it again. I want to get better for you and for me. I must. My illness somehow crept up and grabbed me. I can't do it again. I can't live like that again. And I know you can't either. I must get better, and I will. For us both, starting today, I love you. Again, I'm so sorry, so sorry. I love you and feel so bad for letting you down. Yours. Did I read that right?
You did.
Always that little smile when he answers the question. It takes like cross-examination, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh. So, Lamore, what are your thoughts about that apology email that he is acknowledging that he wrote?
That email does not help Johnny Depp at all, because that is a deep apology for something extreme. That's what it sounds like. You don't apologize for something very minor in that manner, right? It sounds like he's apologized before. Now he's putting it in writing to reinforce it to her that he is apologizing for something, possibly abuse, we don't know, but for something bigger than just something little.
Susan Constantine, any take on his reaction as it's being read, or the actual words that he chooses in that email?
Well, when he's talking about what he's really sorry for, I think that he did respond in a way that he was not happy about, and he was owning to it. But he doesn't really state what he's saying. He doesn't tell you what he did. So we know there was a lot of things that were going on that airplane, and he was based on Amber, he was flicking ice at her and so forth, which I believe was truthful, by the way. I analyzed that, and I think that she was telling the truth. The question being is that what he's speaking about? Is it because they had this bantering back and forth? Was he speaking to her in a disrespectful manner that he's really sorry for? But he doesn't mention abuse, so I don't think we can attach the two together unless we know more information.
Dr. Carol Lieberman, what are your thoughts about the apology?
Well, he's been apologizing to her a lot during their relationship, and he has said that he does it in part because he's trying to placate her. He's trying to calm her. He doesn't want more of her abuse, so he's trying to say things and do things that will make her happy. He has said that will make her happy, so that she will be calmer and nicer to him. So I don't think we can, he doesn't say specifically. I mean, he could have been apologizing for blaming her, for having an affair with James Franco. We don't really know.
So whether or not there was physical abuse on this plane ride is a key part to this whole case, because if the jury believes this story, it's over for Johnny Depp, right? I mean, the trial is over, and I think it damages his reputation, and because it confirms her allegations. But there's other people on this flight. I want to put this up on the screen because we've got a list of who was on that flight. You've got Jerry Judge, who is Johnny Depp's bodyguard. He has passed away subsequently, but you've got Savannah McMillan, Amber Heard's friend. She described her as her friend. You've got Keenan Wyatt, the sound engineer who worked for Johnny Depp. And then you've got Stephen Deuters, who is Johnny Depp's assistant. So at the end of the day here, Lamore, this jury, I think, will listen to whatever these folks have to say. Because we're hearing one thing from Johnny, one thing from Amber, and there's other people on the plane. So, I mean, to me, that unwraps the key to the whole thing, trying to figure out what happened here.
I think so too. I completely agree. And I think that they'll focus on the relationships those people have to each of the parties as well.
All right, Susan Constantine, human behavior expert. Great to see you again tonight. Thank you so much. Lamar, Dr. Carol Lieberman staying with us. When we come back, we're going to take a look at that list we just went through of the other witnesses. Who's going to testify? Who has testified? What are they going to say? All of that when we return.
I remember Jerry Judge was on the flight. Savannah was on the flight. Ms. Hurd. Keenan Wyatt. Stephen Duders. I believe that's it.
Okay, these are people on the plane, but these are witnesses. These are witnesses to what happened on that plane. What did they see? What did they hear? Well, one of them has testified. Keenan Wyatt, the sound engineer, friend of Johnny Depp, worked for Johnny Depp in all his movies as his sound engineer. Here's what he said about what he saw and heard on that plane.
It's your testimony that Mr. Depp didn't kick Amber?
I didn't see anything like that.
Okay. Did you see Mr. Depp go to the back of the plane and pass out and moan loudly?
I don't recall that.
You don't recall that either?
No.
All right. I saw nothing, heard nothing. I mean, it's a private plane, so it's not, I don't think it's a 747 stretch, right? So it's relatively controlled environment. Let's bring back in our guests, Lamar Mojdehizad and Dr. Carol Lieberman. Lamar, what do you think of Keenan Wyatt's testimony? How much weight does it have? And what does it tell you? And what will it tell the jury?
When you see a witness on cross, first of all, we know you're not getting anything out of the other side's witness on cross-examination, right? But I think that everyone knows a response like, I don't recall, means I'm not telling you. You might not remember, right? But I don't recall is very much, I'm not telling you.
Dr. Carol Lieberman, this is not a huge, I mean, it's a jet, all of that, but it's a private jet, so it's not this huge commercial thing where Johnny Depp is in the back in row 55 and someone else is in the front and you're not going to see what's happening. So what do you make of Keenan Wyatt's testimony here?
Well, first of all, I don't recall always means I'm not going to tell you. Sometimes it is, a way of slithering out of answering, but sometimes you don't really recall. Sometimes you're not sure, and so you don't want to say the wrong thing, not because you're lying, you're not sure that you recall correctly. But, I think the other thing that he said, like he didn't see him, he kicking her or whatever. Excuse me. He didn't see him do that. I think this is going to come down to Amber has Savannah on the plane. That could be her ace in the hole. In other words, not necessarily that Johnny really did do something, but does Amber have enough? Can Amber get Savannah to lie? If he didn't do something, and I'm not saying that she is going to lie or did lie or whatever, but that could be, since she was on the plane, Amber's way of trying to get something in that maybe didn't happen.
Lamar, this is, I think Dr. Lieberman is 1,000% correct here, because if I'm in that jury box and Savannah doesn't testify to that, that is a big, big problem for her. But let's take a listen to Amber now testifying about someone else who may take the stand to clear this up. Let's listen.
Without saying what the content is, can you tell us who this text message is with?
Johnny's assistant.
What's his name?
His name is Stephen Duders.
Okay. And what, if any, communication were you having with him following the Boston plane incident?
Objection, hearsay. May we approach?
All right, Ms. Means.
Did you communicate at all with Mr. Depp in the days following the Boston plane incident?
Yes, I did.
Please tell the jury about those communications.
I heard from him directly. I also heard from him through his assistants who were texting for him.
Objection, Your Honor, hearsay.
I'll sustain the objection.
You're not allowed to testify about the text messages with his assistant, but can you tell the jury about your communications with Mr. Depp?
Okay. It's kind of confusing because he was texting through them.
Objection, Your Honor.
I'll sustain the objection. I'll strike that from the record, and you'll disregard that testimony. Please answer the question.
Just confine it to the communications you had with Mr. Depp, please.
That he was sorry and told me that he was in a blackout. He didn't remember everything, but what he did remember, he was ashamed of. He begged me to forgive him. Said he understood and forgave me if I never wanted to speak to him again.
All right, Stephen Duders. This is Johnny Depp's assistant who was on that plane. Johnny Depp's team did not call him to the stand, Lamore. If anything happened, he saw it. Do you think Amber Heard has to call him to the stand as well?
I think that it would be helpful, but the problem is he works for Johnny Depp. So I'm not sure that it would be as helpful to her side as she may think. I think her testimony as the evidence might be all that she can work with.
Dr. Carol Lieberman, the other aspect of this communication with Stephen Duders is he's doing some of this emailing or texting back and forth. So he's in the mix here. If I'm on the jury, I want to hear from him. I don't know exactly what he wrote in those text messages, but if he saw something and he's called to the witness stand, he's got to tell the jury what he saw.
Well, I know that he has said about these text messages that they were changed. There have been some articles with the messages in them, and he said that these were doctored. So that's why I think that she wasn't allowed to testify about it, because there's a whole question about whether these texts are accurate or not.
Big part. Now, you may recall, folks, that there was one witness whose testimony was disregarded and erased from the record and stricken. It was Gina Duders, and you may recall her. We'll take a look at her. There she was. That's Stephen Duders' wife, but apparently she was watching the trial, and you can't do that before she testified. So her testimony was stricken, but she was clearly a huge Johnny Depp advocate, Lamore, and that's Stephen Duders' wife. I can't imagine how much of a supporter Stephen would be. That would be a difficult battle for Amber Heard to call him to the stand. He's not going to cooperate.
Absolutely. You're going to hear a lot of, I don't recall, and whatever that means in that context, what we know it means is that they're not going to get the information they want out of him. At least Amber's side isn't.
But maybe they'll try to get him declared a hostile witness. That's my favorite part of every trial. Lamar, Mojdi Azad, Dr. Carol Lieberman, thank you so much. Appreciate your valuable time tonight. When we come back, folks, we got a lot more to get to. Sometimes you can't believe what people say, but do pictures lie? We'll take a look at the evidence photos next.